Now, this was an episode of Paradise that I just didn't want to finish. I previously had episode 4 down as the best one in the season, but I think this one definitely takes it. Titled The Day, we were finally shown the reason as to why the small population got moved into the emergency bunker inside of the mountain in Colorado, and it was an accumulation of events that caused Versailles to eventually be triggered. With some of the best performances in the entire show coming from this episode, and it feeling like a chaotic, tense-filled ride which really encapsulated that feeling of fear, the conclusive end, but also division around who got to survive. Let's dive into this episode and break down all that there was to take away from it. Here is Paradise Episode 7, Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The importance of the opening scene. Within this episode, we got an opening scene that didn't really hold much context or value until the closing moments of the episode. This scene was set on October 28, 1962, which is considered the last day in the 13-day period which is defined as the Cuban Missile Crisis. And this was when Khrushchev said that the Soviet Union would remove its missiles from Cuba, and the US agreed not to invade it. Within this scene, we saw that the colonel told his wife about how nuclear weapons were on the cusp of being fired at the United States due to it being given orders to launch nuclear weapons if it was cornered. But the captain on board made the decision on his own to not do that, showing that by him making his own decision and going against orders, it prevented catastrophic events from happening. There was an important line that the colonel said, which was, "It's inevitable that it's going to happen again. What if the wrong person is in charge of the controls?" This is the situation that we saw at the end of the episode, with Cal being ordered by the general to launch the United States nuclear weapons because many were on track to hit certain cities in the country from around the world. However, Cal didn't want to do so because he knew of an alternative method that would prevent him being responsible for millions of deaths, something that he didn't want on his hands. The very colonel that we saw at the beginning of the episode was said to have created a different outcome due to the fear of what he went through happening again. Instead of just having the red code, which is what gives the president the ability to launch nuclear weapons, there was a blue one too. One which would switch on a linked array of global EMPs that would essentially fry every electronic circuit on Earth and disable nuclear weapons, meaning that no nation would be able to use their weapons. However, it would set the world back around 500 years and essentially shut off the planet. Throughout this episode, we saw that Cal Bradford wanted to try and do the right thing by the people, and at least give them honesty in what he thought was going to be their final moments that they get with their family. Whether that be due to the supervolcano exploding and causing a mega tsunami, or the nuclear weapons being fired towards them. This is why he chose the option of disabling the nuclear weapons on the planet. They need a chance, was what he said to Sinatra, even though many of the people would die through the tsunami and even some of the side effects from some of the nukes that hit. But with him doing what he did, it would allow them to at least be able to try. We were always under the impression that Atlanta was a direct hit, but what we didn't know of was the blue code that Cal activated, which meant that Teri was actually alive out there, and Xavier's wife was reachable. So Sinatra wasn't lying at the end of the previous episode. This important scene was a great way of showing how history can repeat itself, even if peace finds a way to be formed. Sinatra is a monster. Sinatra referred to herself as a monster in this episode, and I genuinely feel like she is. We didn't see much of her other than in the present day when she was holding all of the power against Xavier by taunting him about the fact that she had his daughter, and also when she revealed to him that Teri was still alive out on the outside. But as well as that, during the flashback, we also saw her pleading with the president to not shut down the electronic circuits on Earth because she relied on them to communicate with the outside world, and they'd need the sensors in order to keep the people inside of the mountain safe. Something that the president didn't listen to and actually threatened to have her shot if she interfered with the more peaceful approach that he was looking to carry out. The fact that she would have rather had the population killed when compared to actually giving them a chance of surviving on their own spoke volumes of the character that she was. She feared for the safety of the lead that were being rescued, and that was it. One thing that I did find particularly interesting in Sinatra's part was that she said that the DNA at the crime scene for the president's murder didn't match any person that lived within the cave, which showed that the killer came from the outside and then fled back to the outside, or they're hiding amongst them still. This showed that Cal's death was probably directly linked with his own actions, because him disabling everything for good, it meant that the security inside of the cave wouldn't have been able to have detected what it was originally set up to do, and it meant that people were going to be able to get inside without detection. This is also dangerous because if somebody knows about the hidden city on the outside, it means that more people could come. And depending on the size of the population on the outside, you never know. Some kind of war could ensue because of the way that they fled the nation and left everybody there to die. Sinatra has Xavier right where she wants him. She's tasked him with finding the killer, she showed him proof of life of his wife, and she also has his daughter. So she has complete control over him, and he has no other option other than letting the elite go free. Something that truly does make her a monster. She's not a leader and one of the people like Cal was. She's a manipulative, evil, dangerous ruler that wants her world to go back to the way that it was where she was in perfect control. She originally resonated with Dr. Liu back in the day because she feared that the world was going to be destroyed. And then, when it was, her lack of empathy for anybody was at the core of her personality, showing that she was a changed individual. The focus on the value of life and division amongst the people. Something that I thought was a really nice touch in this episode was the division that was being formed all throughout it. We saw that throughout the entirety of the episode, Xavier was trying to get a hold of Teri, and there were little pockets where he'd speak to her. And then, when he got through to her, he told her to go to Dobbin's Air Reserve Base. Not everybody knew about the Versailles Protocol, for example, Marsha, but all she wanted to do was get Edward safe, and Xavier promised to help her. However, when the time came, he didn't. It was all a lie. This was something that he was also on the receiving end of when he was about to get on the plane and Teri didn't make it, despite Cal saying that he'd do what he could to get her. But Cal always knew that she wouldn't make it. It showed that this was a time where people were only looking out for themselves and the ones that they cared for. And it also showed the division that was forming amongst the population. It does make me wonder though, why didn't Cal tell Xavier about the Blue Code and that Teri could have survived? I'm going to put it down to the fact that Cal said how much he needed Xavier. And if Xavier knew that Teri was alive on the outside, then he probably would have left Cal. And let's be real, Xavier was really the only person that Cal could trust. When it came to Paradise being built, there were actually rumors going round about the cave that was built for the billionaires and the elite so that they could survive any type of emergency. It was spreading like wildfire online, and it was almost like it was some kind of conspiracy. With the natural disaster and the threat of nuclear explosions, many people were set to die, and we saw the fear within them, and them also questioning why it was that a select few people were going to be able to survive. This escalated to the point where the president's security were actually killing people that they'd worked with for many years in order to stop the chaos from developing. The likes of Marsha had been with Cal from the very beginning, but even she wasn't worthy of getting a seat on the plane. When we heard that it was Ryan's third day, I knew straight up that that man wasn't getting on the helicopter. And I did feel a bit bad for him when we saw that he didn't get a seat. We also saw that the likes of Jeffrey, who was continuing with his day job and cleaning amongst all of the chaos and panic and wasn't taking the threat seriously, he finally listened to the president when he was honest over the broadcast, showing that things were different this time and the world was actually coming to an end. The division that was formed is something that I think is going to continue into season 2 of the show. It's been announced that the show will be returning for a second season, and I think division is going to be at the epicenter of it. I think the people on the outside almost view it as if the president and the elite abandoned the people and left everybody to die. With the gates being snuck into before, I think we could well see the paradise that was created with the hopes of becoming the future for civilization actually becoming the complete opposite, as I imagine the outside will continue to find a way in. The people of Paradise believe that the world ended out there, and there were no survivors. Instead, there are people somebodies that are out there, and the people that were believed to be lost are still alive, and it was all around the country. So the truth coming out and the proof of survivors will be something that will cause division within the city, and the peaceful nature that was at the heart of this environment to be disintegrated for good. My review of the episode. I thought this was such a strong episode of the show. I think it was the best in the series so far. I've been waiting to see the day that the world ended within this show and the events which actually unfolded, and I think they delivered in showing us that story in a perfect way. James Marsden and Sterling K. Brown absolutely delivered when it came to the episode. It was their strongest performance for sure. Seeing the real human side to Cal Bradford whilst navigating the catastrophic events that were occurring and him having to make a decision that held an insane level of weight and responsibility was something that was felt through the screen. It showed that he was good when compared to Sinatra and that they were the complete opposites. Sterling K. Brown, he was just phenomenal. I felt the fear that he had within his eyes and his entire body as the scenes in the White House were unfolding. The emotional goodbye that he had with Teri when they were on the plane as he was telling her that he loved her as the missile was set to hit Atlanta and he was just tracking it was an outstanding scene, and the emotion that he conveyed was next level. I think it was quite nice to truly understand why it was that the world came to an end and how that specific day unfolded. Jeez, the size of that wave as well. It was dark. From the moment that the meeting was taking place in the White House, there was this pulsating rhythm that was in the score that was ever present from that moment on, and it really added to the atmosphere that was there, along with supporting that indecisiveness and the threat that was on the horizon. It was an inescapable situation because not only were there threats from other countries, but there was a natural disaster too, showing that humans were causing the world to end through immediate actions and also actions that had been many, many years in the making. I think Dan Fogelman definitely deserves more recognition for this show. It's been incredible watching it unfold, and I think the season finale is going to deliver when that airs next week too. With the quality that we've had throughout this season, I'm expecting big things. So, there you have it. Paradise Episode 7, Ending Explained. If you want to see more episodes of Paradise being broken down, then click on the card in the top corner. There'll be a playlist there. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Thanks for tuning into this week's breakdown of Paradise, and I'll see you in the next one.